Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Bree. Today we're going to talk through my very giant historical fantasy TBR. I was pulling books off the shelves, much like my gothic TBR. I have a lot of these and I didn't realize just how many I had, but gothic books, horror, and historical fantasy have really become genres that I really love, and so when I do that, I collect a ton of books. As you can see, this whole shelf was basically full and is now empty because I have them all in front of me to talk to you about. So I have quite a bit to talk to you and go through. I've broken them up into separate kind of subcategories that we will talk about. But first, I wanted to talk about like what exactly is historical fantasy. And so like the Gothic TBR, I looked up Goodreads' definition, which doesn't mean that that's the full definition. It's just what I'm going to go with for this video. So, according to Goodreads, historical fantasy is a subgenre of historical fiction that contains fantasy elements like magic. There's a lot of subgenres within the fantasy that can fit into this, so they give examples of like Celtic legends, Arthurian legends, and the Dark Ages could all fit within this. But to me, personally, I consider anything historical fantasy when it's like 1950s and later. We're gonna go with that. And the subcategories I have, which I'll try to leave timestamps down below, are historical fantasy romance, regular just historical fantasy with mystery, and then historical fantasy that is more mythology based or folklore based. So I'm not going to go into deep detail about what each one's about because one, they're on my TBR, so I don't really know the full synopsis. I'm just going to kind of give vibes and like why I'm excited for it. But two is if I do that, we're going to be here forever. So let's just get into it and let's start talking about books. I'll start with my smallest stack, and this is the historical fantasy mystery. So the first one I have on here is Soulless by Gail Carriger. I read this actually earlier last year and I liked it, but there's about 6 books out in this series, I want to say. So I want to get to the rest of the series. I've only read Soulless. There's very much like a romance involved in it and I really like it from that aspect. So I'm excited to continue the series as like kind of a palate cleanser. It's just a really fun series to go and just like have a good time with, and I enjoy the couple and stuff like that. Then we have one that I'm not really sure if I'm going to continue, but that's On the Nature of Magic by Marianne Womack. I picked this one up, had started it, and realized it was the second in a series, so I picked up The Golden Key, which is the first one to this, and I really hated it. It was one of my like least favorite books of the year. I just really didn't like it. It was just very confusing and stuff. So now I've been put off from starting this one, but this one's in 1902, and we're following like a woman and another woman who's now her partner who like solve mysterious mysteries and fantastical mysteries, and the writing in this was very different than the first one, so I'm hoping that this one will go better. So I think I'm still wanting to give it a chance, which is why I put it on this list. But yeah, I really like the blend of historical mystery with fantasy because I like historical mystery, so I just really think that this one had promise, so I don't want to give up on it just yet. But considering I really dislike The Golden Key, I don't know. Then we have one that I found at Half Price Books and I didn't know much about, but I just picked it up. That's The Quick by Lauren Owen, and we're following a woman whose brother goes missing and she ends up getting sucked into like the underworld where maybe vampires and stuff are going to be real, and she's trying to figure out like what happened to her brother and why he's missing. And again, I just picked it up because vibes are historical fantasy mystery and I'm about it. So, and I really have been getting back into like the vampire era. I feel like vampires are coming back, and so this one, it was written in 2014, so it's a little bit older, and I like having backlists as well to check out, and I haven't heard many people talk about it, so I'm excited to get to it, and it's just been catching my eye. Now we'll go into my other small category, which is historical fantasy romance. I don't have many of these, but I want more of them because I've really found that I like historical fantasy romance. I'm just going to hold up this, but I have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedic Fairies. I read this earlier in 2023, one of my favorite books of the year. The next one, The Map of the Other Lands, comes out very soon, like this week, so I should get my copy very soon, so I had to put it on the list because I will be reading this very soon. We're following Emily Wilde as she's like tracking fairies for her encyclopedia, and there's a bit of a slow burn romance between her and her her co-worker who is kind of her academic rival, and then there's like a mystery with fairies happening, and I'm just very much about this, so definitely have the next one that I need to read very soon as it comes out. And then I found out Olivia Atwater had another book out, and that's The Witch Would Not by Olivia Atwater, obviously. She wrote Half a Soul, which was my favorite book of 2023, and This is her newest release, which I think is going to be a little darker. It's still dealing with fairies, but it's Victorian, like gothic fairy tale type story, and I think there's going to be a romance in it. I really honestly have no idea. It just says the fairies of Witchwood Manor have stolen its young lord. His governess intends to seal him back. That's all I need to know. Like, truly, when I heard Olivia Atwater, Victorian, well, really when I heard Olivia Atwater, it was in my cart, but then the whole Victorian Gothic, it just signed me up. It does say romance, so I think we're going to have a romance, and I just can't wait. Cannot wait, because I love Half a Soul, and I really enjoyed the rest of the series, and I read Small Miracles by her. Really loved it, so she's an auto-buy author for me at this point, so very happy to have that on the TBR. Then we have one that I've been meaning to get to for a while, and I just haven't picked it up yet, and I really need to, and that's A Marvelous Light by Freya Marsk. This is a series of historical fantasy romance. I don't know what time period we're set in, but this feels Regency to me. But it's a queer story about two men, and I think that they're solving a mystery. I'm not really sure, but it says mystery, magic, murder, and long looks full of yearning. This book is a confection, both marvelous and light, and that was blurbed by Alexia Harrow. So I've just heard really good things about this. It seems like it's going to be my kind of thing. It seems maybe slow burn, because I was asking for like recommendations and looking for recommendations of historical fantasy romance, and this has come up a lot, and so I'm really excited to get to it. I just need to get to it, but for some reason historical fantasy romance have been kind of my like saving for a rainy day, especially like new series, because then I like to go through all of them. So I need to just read it and not like save it for the perfect time, you know? And then we have another one that I picked up kind of randomly, and this one is more like Arthurian legend or Celtic mythology. I'm not exactly sure which one, but it's like inspired by that, and it's Sweet Black Waves by Christina Perez. So I'd seen this at Half Price Books, and I picked it up because it just really intrigued me. I have been trying a lot of like more fun historical fantasy romance, so I thought I would give something maybe a little more serious a try, and so that's why I picked this one up, and I'm very excited to get to it. I did start it, and I put it down just because I wasn't really in the mood at the time, but I liked the writing so far, so I'm hoping the vibes are a little bit eerie and a little bit like melancholy, but also kind of cozy, if that makes sense. That's what I'm hoping the vibes are. And my stack has already fallen over. Okay, next we're just going to talk through like mythology type ones or folklore type ones. So first one I have on my radar is Gods of Jaden's Shadow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This is set in 1920s Mexico, and it's inspired by Mexican folklore, and it's just during the Jazz Age and something about a Mayan death god. I really, again, like Olivia Atwater, don't really know much about this. I just want to read all of Sylvia Moreno Garcia's backlist. So I have this one to pick up, and I'm really excited for it. I think I'm going to like it because I've really loved her historical fantasy books. So I have high hopes for this one, and I'm excited to get like the 1920s vibe because I think it's going to be very like dazzling parties, that kind of vibe, and I'm here for it. Then we have one that I feel a little embarrassed that I've never read. That's Circe by Madeline Miller. This is about Circe, who's part of the Odyssey, and it's just a retelling of her story. Everyone knows what this is about, and it's gotten amazing reviews. I've heard it's kind of slower and like more of a character study, and so that might have not worked for some people, but I really like that in my stories, so I feel like I'm going to really, really like this, and I just kind of got back into myth retellings in this year, so by that I mean I read like one, and now I'm going to be hyperfixated on it, so, but that being said, I do want to get to it, and I think it's going to be a good one for me, just based on what people have said about it. Then we have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I read Tread of Angels earlier this year, really liked it, but wanted like a full-length novel from her. This is pre-Columbian Americas inspired. I think it's got to do with celestial prophecies and forbidden magic, and that's really all I need to know. Once I like an author's writing and stuff, I'm really easily able to like pick up their backlist and just give it a go. You know, I don't really question too much what things are about. When I like an author, I just kind of trust that I might like their other books. So that's what I'm doing with this one. I think it's going to be really, really good, and I've heard amazing reviews, and it's a trilogy, so hope to get to that soon. Then we have Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercroft. This was being talked about a lot when it released, and it just really made me interested, and then I didn't pick it up, and so I'm kind of annoyed with myself for that. So this is a Baba Yaga retelling. It's about the Yaga siblings who I believe they are kind of estranged, and then they inherit their family house, and they go, and it's a little like magical and strange, and they're kind of like learning their backstory, and I think that's supposed to be the like origin story of kind of Baba Yaga. I'm not really sure what to expect, but I think it just looks really good, and when I saw it, I was just so intrigued by it, and I had heard good reviews, but I just haven't picked it up yet, and so I really need to. So yeah, I need to get to this. These mythology ones are kind of ones that I tend to not gravitate towards, but I'm hoping that 2024 is the year for that for me. Now let's get to the biggest stack, which is just regular historical fantasy. I'm sure I could subcategorize more, but we're just going to go with it. So we have The Thorns Remain by J.J.A. Harwood, and this is set in 1919, and I believe we have just after a war, a bunch of people in the village are going, and they go and have this like celebration around a campfire, and then they all disappear except for one girl. So I think we're following her. She's trying to figure out what happened to them, and I believe it's gonna have fae involved in it. So I'm very intrigued for this because I want to try more fae stories, and when it said historical fantasy meets fairy stuff, I was intrigued, so I picked it up. Then we have another Sylvia Moreno Garcia. That's The Daughter of Dr. Moreau. This one, I don't know when it's set, but it's supposed to be a retelling of the Island of Dr. Moreau, which is about like a scientist who turned animals to part human, and it's following the daughter of him, and I don't really know what else is supposed to happen in this, but I just picked it up after hearing such good reviews, but then also knowing that I like Sylvia Moreno Garcia. Set in the backdrop of 19th century Mexico, and that's all I really needed to know, and I like retellings of this kind, so I'm intrigued because I really like retellings of like scientists and stuff. I think those are fun. Like I've read The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, which is retelling like this mad scientist kind of thing. So this one intrigued me as well for that reason. Then we have Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This one's set in 1915 and then present day 1976, and we're following a woman who keeps getting thrown back in time to 1815, and she keeps having to save this boy, and she starts to maybe figure out throughout the timelines like why she keeps being sent back to save this boy. And she's a black woman, and she's going back into times where slavery is around, and so she is seeing like the horrors of that as well. And I've just heard truly such good reviews. I know I said that about a lot of things, but I feel like this one is one that I've like never heard a negative review on, and so I have been wanting to pick it up because I really think that it's going to be a hard read, but like a good one as well, and I think I'm really going to like it, and I really like time travel elements, so I'm very excited to get to this one. Then we have a new pickup that I got recently. That's The Golem and the Genie by Helen Wecker, and this is following, I believe, a golem and a genie, and they kind of just meet up. I think they were made maybe under like weird circumstances. I did start like 10 pages of it, and we're just following how the golem was made, and I believe that they just kind of like strike up a friendship, and it's supposed to be like their story, and I've heard just like it's a really sweet and beautiful story, so that just signed me up right there, you know. I'll read you a quote because I feel like this sums up like why I got it, because this is what people were talking about. It says, "It's a delightful blend of the prosaic and the fanciful. The Golem and the Genie explores what it means to be human as Chava and Ahmed struggle to live and find love while overcoming the powerful adversary who threatens to destroy them." I mean, sign me up. It takes place in 1899 in New York, and so we're following them, and I just feel like this one's gonna speak to me, and I had to get it. So I bought this off Pango very recently, and I'm just very happy to have it on my shelves and to read very soon. We got a little bit more to talk about. I'm just gonna hold them here because it's easier. Now, this one is Bindlepunk Bruja by Desideria Mesa. This one I've picked up and put down like 5 times, and I'm just not sure if the story is for me or not, but I really want to give it a full try. I just think that there's something that I just keep getting bored about this much through, and then I'll put it down. So I do think I made it a little further than this bookmark the next time, but yeah, we're just following a woman who owns her own jazz club, and she employs like her brother and other workers there, but she's constantly being like harassed by men, and she has to try to not, one, show her magical abilities and let them be known, and then also she needs to not like let people know that she's not actually white. And we're following her as these like gangster mobsters like kind of come in and threaten her because they want to own her business essentially and make her pay them and do all this stuff, and she's kind of fighting that. So we're following like that kind of mystery and stuff, and yeah, so it's on my TBR. I don't know, I don't know how I feel about it, so We'll see if I continue and give it a go, but it is on the TBR for now. Then we have one that's also been on my TBR forever, and that's The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. I read a Alex E. Harrow, it was a novella. The name is eluding me. I'll pop it up on the screen. And I didn't really like it. Oh, A Spindled Splintered. And that was just like not my favorite of hers, but this one seems very different, and I've heard good things about it, and we're set in 1893, and I think it has to do with the Salem witch trials. I think we're splashing back between those two timelines. I've had this literally for years, and I just have not picked it up because there's something that keeps me stopping from it, but I think I would like it, consider it's witches and stuff. So let me know if you think it's worth my time, because this one is also a question mark for me. Then I have this one, which I've already read the first two, but there's 5 in the series, so I have 3 more, I want to say, to get through. But this is The Natural History of Dragons. This is part of the Lady Trent memoirs, and we're following a woman who is just like detailing her life as she goes and studies these dragons. And it's one that I've enjoyed, but I'm not sure how I feel about some of the elements of it. So it's kind of a lower priority series for me to continue, but it is on the historical fantasy TBR, and I think if you like the academia side of things, you could really like this, and that's one of the things that keeps drawing me back to it, is the academia side. It's just some of the like ways that we talk about like exploring other countries and stuff. It's just a little weird to me, so I'm unsure how I feel, but I think I will continue in it. Yeah, so that's A Natural History of Dragons. Then we have a recent pickup as well, The Daughters of Azidhar by Hedir Elspy, and it's supposed to be based off of modern Egyptian history, is what it says. And we're following 2 characters, a baker, I want to say, and then like a con artist, and they have to come together, figure out what's going on in this world, and I believe there's stuff to do with magic and the patriarchy, and they're going to have to take it down. And this is a debut novel, and it's been blurbed by Shannon Chakraborty and P. Jelly Clark and Ava Reed, so I just thought I'd pick it up when I saw it at half price because it sounds like my thing, and I haven't heard anyone talk about it, so I'm excited to get to it. It's going to be a duology. Honestly, I see historical fantasy at this point, and I pick it up because they all sound great to me, and this one, the synopsis sounded really good, so there's that. Then we have The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland, and this is one that I picked up because I've just recently seen it around a lot, and I thought I could like it because it seems like it's going to be a character study. We're following a woman who I believe is like immortal. I don't know if she's a vampire or not, but I think so. And I think we're following her life. And then I think she's also like teaching at this university in New York. And we're just like chronicling her life. This one's not quite as historical based because I think most of it's set in 1984, which I guess you could still call historical at this point in time. But we're, I think, following her whole life up to that point too, so that's why I put it on this list, and I think it's just gonna be a character story of like what it means to be immortal and like live forever, and that really intrigues me. I've tried to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I DNF'd it about 50% of the way through because it was just like it was just a little too dark and not my thing, but I do kind of want to give that a try again because now that I've really discovered how much I like character stories, like maybe it just wasn't the right time for it. So I may give that one a try. And for some reason, this one reminds me of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So there's been no mentions of it being like the same. But I just think it sounds good. And I like reading about like immortality and stuff. Then we have one that I think is kind of a crime I haven't read yet. And that's Babel by R.F. Kuang. And we're following a boy as he's taken from his homeland in China and then brought to the UK, and he's taught like languages, and it has to do with the magic system, and I believe it's just like talking about the roots of colonialism and how colonialism affects our world and things like that. And so I've just heard amazing things. I think it's going to be really good. I think the commentary is going to be really, really good, and it just seems like something I'm going to love because it's dealing with languages and like the use of language and how that is powerful and how we use our language. So I just need to get to it. I actually did, you'll be proud of me, I started it on audio, and so I am hoping to get through it hopefully this month or next month, but yeah, I just been putting it off because it's so big and I'm intimidated by it, but at the same time I think I'm gonna like it, so I don't know. I think it's just because when a book gets so popular, it gets so many like good and negative reviews, and then it kind of like sways my opinion. I kind of wish I had like read it right when it came out so that I didn't have other people's opinions like making an impact on my reading experience, but I'm going in with an open mind and I think I will like it. I truly do. So I'm just hoping I don't overhype it. in my brain. So the next one I have is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez, and this is a YA historical fantasy. It's the only YA one on my list, and we're following a girl who lives in Argentina, and I don't know what year it is, 1884, and we're following her as her parents are away, and then I believe they are killed or found dead, and then she goes to Egypt eventually to like figure out what happened to them, and she has this magical ring or something that I think her father left her, and she gets involved in this mystery of her new guardian, and some weird things are happening, and it just says The Mummy meets Death on the Nile in this lush immersive historical fantasy filled with adventure, a rivals to lovers romance, and shocking twists and turns. That's all I need to know. It just sounds really good. It sounds like up my alley and something that I'm gonna really like. So ever since I heard about this book, it's been on my anticipated releases, but I just haven't got to it yet, and I need to. 2024 is gonna be the year that I get to this. Then we have Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Muro. This one is a huge book. Found this at half price, and it's just been one that has been really intriguing me. We're in England in 1882 in London, and this is giving me like X-Men vibes. I think we're following a boy, and he's at a school for other people with gifts, and I think that they have to save the day. I think I'm gonna like it. I'm just intimidated, which I shouldn't be because I've read big books before. Like I've read all of the Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, so like I shouldn't be intimidated by 657 pages, but I am, and I need to just get over my fear. It's not even a fear, it's just like an apprehension of big books lately. I think because of like making content and stuff, I just know it's going to take me forever to get through, and I need to not care about this year and just get through the big books, because I also think that's partly why I haven't got to Babel. So this year I will be doing that. Last book is A Declaration of the Rights of Magicians by H.G. Perry. Now, this one I picked up after I read The Magician's Daughter, which is also a historical fantasy by H.G. Perry. Loved it. One of my favorite books of last year. But then I picked up The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep by H.G. Perry as well. That one's more of an urban fantasy, and I really disliked it. Like, probably if I had made a worst books of the year video, it would probably be on it. So now I've been kind of put off to start this one, but at the same time, this one is historical fantasy, like The Magician's Daughter, so hopefully I like it more. So we're following the revolution where Robespierre is calling for revolution in France, and I think it's just going to be like a reimagining of that time period, but with fantasy. And there's like an unknown force, it says, inciting all of human civilization into violent conflict. I really picked this up because I wanted to try another H.G. Perry, and it was available at half price, and so I saw it and I said, yes, you are coming home with me. So that's another bigger book that's on my TBR that I just haven't got to yet, but I really need to. So mark my words, 2024, year of big books. Not gonna hold up all of them, but here's just some of the books I have on my historical fantasy TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any recommendations, leave them down below. And also, if you have any ones that you think I'm really going to like or should get to soon, please let me know, because it would help. I have a lot and I need help knowing what to prioritize. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.